everyone, and welcome back to Ramen Kitchen Live. My name is Valerie. I'm one of the registered dietitians here at Community Servings, and I'm so excited to be back with you today. Today, we are cooking with ramen, and I'm so excited because who doesn't love ramen? Who doesn't love like a good noodle? And I'm going to show you how to take these little packets of ramen soup and make them healthy and super delicious. And the recipes we're going to make are so easy, you're not going to even believe it. What we're going to do today is I'm going to make a beef and ramen stir fry to start. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about a second recipe, which is a ramen noodle frittata. We're not going to make it today, but I'm going to show you the finished product and talk to you about how easy it is to actually assemble. So I'm going to go started. The beef and ramen stir fry. This has been a recipe in my repertoire for probably 20 years or more, and I don't even know where I got the original recipe from, but it's so easy, and if with just a few tweaks you can actually make this packet of deep fried noodles super delicious and healthy. So the main ingredients in this are some beef, which I'm using, but you could actually use really any protein that you'd like. I have made this with chicken, I have made it with tofu, with pork, with egg. I have done it every which way, so it is super versatile. We're going to do with beef today. And I am going to use broccoli coleslaw, which is basically shredded broccoli stems. I think it's like, broccoli producers trying to use some of the stems they don't know what to do with. Super nutritious, lots of nutrients, lots of fiber. You could do this with coleslaw, or you could actually do it with whole broccoli if you couldn't find broccoli slaw. Some scallions and ramen noodles and a few seasonings, and you'll be good to go. So to start, I'm going to cut up. I just have a bunch of scallions that I've washed, and I trimmed the tougher top part of the greens off. I'm just going to cut these up. They don't have to be cut super fine. And these will give a nice flavor, but if you didn't have scallions, you could actually use onions or red onions, and they would be delicious. That's the thing, like, you can't actually mess this dish up if you have some of the basic ingredients. There's nothing you can do that's going to really screw this up. It's like super easy. So I should also qualify this with saying that this is, like at home instant ramen. This is not like the super fancy ramen that you're going to find in some, really good restaurants out there, but this is like absolutely delicious. And the other item I'm going to use for this is beef. So I ended up having to shop via Instacart, which I've never done before. And this is choice beef chuck tender steak. I don't think it's what I asked for, but like truly any cut of beef works here. I have done this most recently with, I'm actually going to put gloves on to do this. Sorry, I shouldn't have been prepared for that. I don't want to handle red meat and then handle everything else. I have done this with flank steak. I've done it with like beef trimmings if I've made like a roast or something. It's like so versatile in that way, which I love. So I am going to, all you want to do is cut the beef, and preferably across the grain if you can. When you cut meats across the grain, they actually are a little more tender when you cook them and eat them. So I can kind of see that here, and I'm just going to cut this into thin strips. When I've done this with chicken, I've just taken chicken breasts, or I've done it with chicken thighs too, and cut those up into strips or chunks. Either one works. If you have leftover meat that's already been cooked in some way, you can actually toss that in too. You just don't cook it for as long, you just need to heat it through. So ramen noodles, I think, they're like, I feel like they were a staple in my teenage years. I ate so many of them, and it was like they were kind of a novelty, a couple decades ago. And they're inherently, the noodles themselves aren't bad for you. It's what comes with them that you don't want to have too much of too often. It's the seasoning packet in the ramen has just a lot of chemicals in it and a ton of sodium. But by not using that seasoning packet and just using the noodles, you get the deliciousness of the noodles, which are basically deep fried noodles, and without all of the added stuff. So that's what I love about using these, and they're super affordable. This whole dish, so the beef, which was on sale, and I didn't get an expensive cut, plus the broccoli slaw, the noodles, and like the seasonings. This is going to serve easily 6 people for a meal for it was under $15. So this is a really affordable way to utilize noodles, make them healthy, and make a dinner that you can really stretch. All right, so that said, I am going to turn on my stove and we're going to get cooking. Oops. So I just have a non-stick skillet here. You could do this in a wok if you had one. I don't have a wok at home, so I just tend to use my big non-stick skillet. And I'm going to put a little bit, I'm using canola oil here. Sometimes if I have it on hand, I use sesame oil, which is really delicious with this as well. I couldn't find any today here in the kitchen, so canola oil it is, and it's delicious. It'll still be really good. So we're going to let that heat up, and we're going to cook the beef and the scallions just for a few minutes, just till the beef is, you don't want to like cook the life out of it unless you really like very well done beef. So I'm going to cook it to be like medium, which is only going to take a few minutes, and then we'll cook up the rest of the vegetables and we'll have a delicious dish. The other dish that I made today and that I'm just going to talk about, we're not going to make, is I actually made a ramen noodle frittata. And we've done frittatas in Learning Kitchen Live before, and it's basically eggs baked with stuff, like anything you want to put in it, and it makes a really good meal and a really affordable meal that you can stretch pretty far. But I liked the idea of using some cooked ramen noodles in this, and we threw in some red peppers, some broccoli, 2 packages of cooked ramen, and 6 eggs, and that's all this was, and it came together in like 15 minutes. It's super easy, and I will take that out later and show you what the final product looks like. All right, I have my beef, or my oil nice and heated up, so I'm going to add the beef. And I'm going to actually add my scallions as well. And just let this cook for a minute. Now, I'm going to let the beef not be like cooked into a piece of leather. If you were doing this with poultry or pork, you want to cook it through. You don't want medium rare poultry ever. That's like a recipe for disaster. All right. If any of you watching have any favorite ways that you like using ramen and want to put that in the chat, please do so. These are 2 of my favorite ways to use these noodles. I feel like a guilty pleasure occasionally is eating the noodle packet with the seasoning that comes with it, but I feel like I need to drink 5 gallons of water after doing that because it's just so super salty. And you'll notice I'm not adding any seasoning to this right now because I'm going to add some soy sauce at the end. And the noodles themselves, even without the seasoning, do have a little sodium in them, so I'm just trying to be mindful. We don't want to oversalt it, and we don't want to make it unhealthy. All right. So as soon as this just cooks for another moment, what we will do is we're going to remove it from the pan and then just cook up the broccoli slaw really quick. And I said this before, the thing that's beautiful about this dish is, like, I love doing it with broccoli slaw because it's nutritious, has a lot of fiber. I love the flavor of it. But you could do this with packaged coleslaw or just shredded cabbage and carrots if you have that on hand. You can chop up broccoli, really, literally any vegetable you have. This is kind of a, this isn't maybe the nicest way to say this, but this is kind of like a garbage can of a dish. Like, you can put anything in it and it tastes so good. All right. Just let this go for like another minute. Now, if you were going to do this with tofu, what I would say is you should brown the tofu in some oil until it's nice and crisp on all sides, just so it doesn't feel soggy. But I love doing that. You could even marinate the tofu beforehand in a little bit of soy sauce to give it a little extra flavor. All right, this is looking good. The beef is gonna go back in the pot or the pan to warm it up before we serve it again as well. So I am just going to remove that to a plate. And next, I'm gonna add my bag of broccoli slaw. And just let this cook up a tiny bit. You don't want it to get mushy, you just want to get a little bit of the raw broccoli bite out of it. You know, another way that I love using ramen noodles, and this sounds like crazy, but you can Google this online and see, you can make a ramen noodle salad where you basically take vegetables and a dressing and raw crunchy ramen noodles and mix them in with it, and you eat them kind of crunchy, and it sounds strange, but it is amazingly delicious. We have a recipe from Community Servings actually that I've made with bok choy and like a soy sauce type of dressing, and it has some other vegetables in it, almonds. It's delicious. I do that all the time in the summer when bok choy is like at its peak, but I've seen it also done with chopped broccoli, and again, it sounds crazy, but like raw crunchy ramen noodles are really delicious. All right, while that cooks for a moment, what I'm going to do is get my ramen ready, because we're going to just cook these noodles in this pan really quickly, and we are going to only use the noodles. We are going to actually discard the little flavor packet inside, and because of that, it doesn't actually matter what flavor ramen you buy. They come in like chicken, beef, roast beef, seafood. They come in tons of flavors, but because we're not using the noodle or the seasoning packet, it doesn't matter what flavor you get. This just happened to be chicken. All right. All right, these just need another minute. Again, I told you this recipe goes super fast. If I make this at home and have extra vegetables lying around that are gonna go south soon, I usually just shred them or cut them up really finely and put them in this too. I really like red pepper in it. All right. Well, I hope all this fits on this plate. Being a little overambitious with this plate size here, but I think we got most of it. All right. What I'm going to do is add to the saucepan, I need 3 to 4 cups of water. So that was 2. Use about 3.5 cups. And let this come to a boil. Ooh, I lost a piece of beef under here. It's like extra toasty now. All right, while this comes to a boil, um, which will happen pretty quickly because this is shallow, I'm actually just going to break this up a little bit so they cook faster. Ooh, that one does not want to come apart. And these cook in like 3 to 4 minutes maybe. They go really quickly. And we're gonna let some of the water boil off as well. And then that's gonna, with a little bit of soy sauce and all of this added back in, it's gonna make like a sauce for the final product, which is delicious. And again, if anyone's just joining now, my name is Valerie and you are watching Learning Kitchen Live, and today we are cooking with ramen. While this comes to a boil and cooks our noodles, what I can do is take this frittata out and show you what it looks like. So this was a recipe we assembled and cooked beforehand, just for the interest of time today, and it's a frittata with ramen noodles. Now, you can make this with any kind of leftover pasta, or you can actually just leave the pasta out, but it was some garlic and ginger sauteed, and then some red pepper and broccoli, and then I dumped in 2 packets of cooked ramen noodles and 6 eggs and a little bit of milk, and it just went in the oven for about 20 minutes. So what I'm going to do here is like literally just flip that over, and there you have it. This is great. So as you can see, like, this makes a ton of food, and again, the ingredients for this were less than $15, and this will easily feed at least 6 people for one meal. It's super affordable and really delicious. And again, frittatas, I've said this before on here, are a wonderful way to use up vegetables that you have lying around, really anything that you have lying around. I happen to like the red pepper and broccoli in this, but you could do it with anything that you have lying around. You could throw onions in, really anything, and you can see that this is like a nice veggie packed meal. You could, I mean, I would eat this for breakfast, to be honest, but you could have this for lunch or dinner. And one of the things that's great about frittata is that it freezes really well. So you can make this and then wrap the individual pieces and then just defrost them and heat them up when you're ready to eat them. Something that I do a lot at home is I make muffin tin frittatas. So you basically just use a muffin tin, pour the mixture. It's a little hard with noodles to do this, but pour the mixture in the muffin tins, bake it for 15 minutes, and then you have individual little frittatas that you can freeze and just take as a breakfast on the run, which is really nice. All right, we have a boil here. Our noodles are cooking, and they should be done in a minute or 2. So the last thing I'm going to add to this dish is a little bit of soy sauce. I have about a tablespoon of low sodium soy sauce, and I'm actually going to add it to the noodles while they cook. And then that's it. I'm not going to add any more salt. You always could if you felt like it needed a little more, but you know, you've heard us say this over and over again on Learning Kitchen Live, is we really, really try to keep the sodium in check when we're cooking, just because it's so much better for your health. So this is a great way to enjoy kind of an Asian-inspired dish with a little bit less sodium in it. All right, I'm gonna this just needs to boil off some of the water, and we will have a finished dish. When I cook at home, I find that I gravitate so much towards dishes like this because they're so easy to do, they're so versatile, and once you have a basic technique down or a basic recipe in your head, you don't even need to follow a recipe. You can just literally cook things together the way, like flavors that you enjoy, and modify and make it your own. That's what I've done with this. Like I said, I've been cooking this dish for forever and ever, and it's evolved over time, and I think it just keeps getting better. All right. When I first, again, I don't remember where I first got this recipe from, but the original recipe that I used actually called for using the ramen seasoning packet in it, and I eventually stopped that because I don't love the flavor of it. I think some people probably do, but again, it's a lot of extra sodium and chemicals, and I just don't find it to be a really delicious flavor. I would rather, if I wanted a beef flavor, I would consider using salt-free or low sodium beef broth or chicken broth while making this, but I actually find the water is just fine. All right, just want this to, I want to lose a little bit more of the liquid. I don't know if you could see this, but there's still a good amount of liquid in here. I'm going to let it boil off for about 2 more minutes maybe at the most. Again, this is Learning Kitchen Live. We're cooking with ramen, and if anyone watching live has any way that they love to use ramen and wants to share it in the chat, we would be happy to know that. Okay, I actually think we're good to go here. This makes it, leaving a little bit of the water in makes this like have a nice sauce, and as it sits, it'll absorb more. And this is great heated up the next day. And in fact, I have been known to just eat this cold the next day. I think cold, like leftover cold ramen noodles are delicious, but you can heat it up too. All right, this is all going back in. So that is just the beef with its accumulated juices, which will give a little extra flavor, and the broccoli slaw. And that's so like pretty and colorful and actually not that bad for you, pretty healthy. And that is it. And as you can see, this easily could serve 4 to 6 people. I think it's probably close to 6. Like if I make this at home, there's 4 people and usually leftovers for at least 1 or 2 lunches the next day. So I think it's a great way to stretch your dollar, to use up what you have and not generate extra food waste, and it's delicious. So those are our recipes today. We have this super easy frittata, and both of these recipes will be posted in the comments section later today. And then we have this beef and ramen stir fry, and I hope I've inspired you to think about using ramen noodles in a different way and to try something new at home. And thank you. We hope to see you back here next week for another Learning Kitchen Live.